Hi, my name is Lynn Elliott, and I'll tell you the background to another of my scripts, the one called ALTA, California. So I am an immigrant. I was born and raised in Wales. I got my undergraduate degrees in Nottingham, in England, and then I emigrated to the United States. I was in Santa Ana in California. I was there for a year waiting to go to UC Santa Barbara, where I got my MA and PhD. But anyway, while I was in Santa Barbara, I thought, well, it would be good to catch up with American history and American politics. And so I took two separate courses. And the one in American history, it was a shock. What can I say? I come from Europe, and in Europe, of course, history is violent. History is kings chopping off the heads of their wives. It is about power. It is about dominating this or that. World War II, Germany, Poland, Britain, all of this. And here I was taking this class that was extremely sanitized. I read about the Constitution, and I read about how it was put together and things like that. And I soon realized that we hadn't talked about women, we hadn't talked about blacks and slavery, and we hadn't talked about Native Americans. And so I set myself a task, and that was I wanted independently to find out something about American history that was not coming from this class. And so I chose the California Indians. And I thought, how many tribes can I name? And it was miserable. I think maybe one or two. There were once 500 California Indian tribes. So naturally, now my mind is thinking, okay, so what happened to those tribes? Well, I found out that that back in the 1850s, I think it was, there was a governor of California who said we should obliterate all Native Americans in California. But that wasn't. I wanted to go even further back. I wanted to find out when was the moment when this demise began, the first contact between Europeans and California Indians. And of course, I got back to the mission period and Father Sarah and the mission period and the setting up of the missions in California. And it became fascinating to me because it's so dominated by Father Sarah and his setting up of the missions. And of course, he has now become a saint, that I thought, well, what else was going on? And as I read the history books of this period, I began to realize that there was a real discomfort that I was beginning to feel in this. And that was that Father Sarah was not the only opinion on what should happen to the Native Americans. Let me just back up a moment and say the question that I was focused on in terms of the history of Alta California is the moment when the Spanish realized they would have to leave this New Spain, or at least what we would call Alta California. They would have to retreat to Mexico. And the reason for that was the European wars were so demanding upon King Carlos III's treasury that they simply didn't have enough money. And so they said, well, the Spanish have to leave Alta California and retreat back to what we call Mexico today. Now the question is, what happens to the Indians, the baptized Indians? They were called neophytes. What happens to the neophytes? What happens to them when the Spanish leave? Well, there's two opinions, and we all know the one, which is that Father Sarah said they should stay in the missions. Why? Because God will look after them. Anyway, there was actually a second opinion, and that came from King Carlos and Captain Philippe de Neve, who was the governor of California. at this time. He was the military authority who protected the missions, and he had a different opinion. And his opinion was that the neophytes should be returned to their tribes, to their tribal ways. They should, in each of the missions, they should choose a headman. We might call him chief. We might choose a headman, and he would lead his people back up to the hills or wherever, leave the mission, and form a tribe. This was to prepare them for the coming of the white man from the east. There were Russians coming from the north and the white coming from the east. We know which one won out of those two opinions. How it won out is fascinating. It's absolutely Machiavellian. It's absolutely an unbelievable political maneuvering by Father Serra. We now know the mission survived, but this was the beginning of the demise of the California Indians. They were not prepared for the coming of the gold rush and things like that. They were not prepared. And so that's the background to this whole argument that went on between Captain Philippe de Neve and Father Serra, who has now been sainted, of course. One rose, the other fell. Today, Padre Serra is remembered, of course. He is a saint, and people go to his mission in Carmel to see his grave. Where is Captain Philippe de Neve? There's a statue of him in Los Angeles, but many people do not know about this man, who was a very important figure at this time. He is actually buried under a flagstone in a hacienda in Chihuahua in Mexico. And he wanted it that way so that people would tread upon him after his death. Very sad figure. He married in Spain, then came to California at King Carlos's bidding because he was such a brilliant authority figure. And he never saw his wife again. 26 years after his marriage, he never saw his wife again. And she had died, of course. But that's the background. In the foreground, I had the story of a young boy. He is a mixed blood. His mother is a native Californian woman, was raped by a Spaniard, and so she has a mixed blood. Now, at the age of 10, his village is attacked by the Spanish soldiers. His village is destroyed, and his mother is slaughtered in front of his eyes. He is saved by a Franciscan who takes him to be raised as a neophyte. But he fights, he struggles all the time. He cannot accept Christianity because Christianity says that all those who are unbaptized go to hell. Well, that's where his mother is gone, according to the Christian faith. And so he could not accept it. He's quite a rebel. He fights. But anyway, he gets to Captain Philippe de Neve is fascinated by this rebel figure, and he uses him as a soldier. And so that is going on. What Paco Pulido, that's his name, what Paco Pulido wants is to find his home. He wants to find his family. He wants to find out where he belongs, because he lost all of this when those Spaniards attacked his village. And so that's the foreground story, is Paco Pulido. And it is, of course, the actual script itself is divided in three, because the last mission to be built was Santa Barbara. And why was it the last? The Chumash Indians of Santa Barbara were extremely hostile, and they were the last to be brought into the fold, as it were. And it is in Santa Barbara that Paco finds his home. He finds a love, Ifapi, who takes him to this great gathering that they're having in the Santa Barbara tribe, this great gathering. And in that gathering, in a darkened longhouse, he meets the spirit of his dead mother. And then he returns to Captain Philippe de Neve, with instructions about that he has to go to the missions and pass on the information that each of the tribes in the missions will have a headman who will then take the tribe back to the hills or wherever to set up a tribe once again. He has to do that. Well, he finds out as he goes to the missions, this is his task, to tell them, you are going to do this. This is the orders of King Carlos. These are the orders of Philippe de Neve. He finds out that Father Serra has already undercut all of this in favor of his decision, which is that the neophytes will remain in the missions. And so that's the background story behind this foreground story of Paco Pulido. It has won innumerable awards, this one internationally, this script. And it is also on the red list of Coverfly